Hey guys, welcome back to Matt Kiteboarding. I'm Tucker, and today I'm here to talk with you about one of the little details we have to deal with in parawinging. With this fresh new sport officially kicking off hot now, and one thing a lot of people realize is, man, these things have a lot of power. You got to hang on to them for a long time, especially if you're riding upwind. If you're riding overpowered at all, it's a lot to handle. So how do you handle that? Get yourself a harness and a harness line. And first thing you're gonna realize when you get a harness or a harness line is, man, how do I connect this thing to my parawing bar? And what kind of harness line do I want? So we're here to talk with you about some of those options, how they might connect to your bar, and explore some of our favorites and show you how that all works. So what we got here are a couple of bars. We got one from Flow, we got the Ozone Pocket Rocket bar here, and a couple of different setups. I can walk you through some of that and show you how they connect and give you some of the positives and negatives of both. I would say our most common and my favorite for most bars is going to be just your standard hard harness loop like you have on a windsurfer. It's got two loops that slide over the top of the bar and cinch down, and then velcro like you see here. Before you put it on the bar, it looks something like this. This one's from Mystic, this one's from MFC, but it's basically the same thing. You want to get one in a proper length for what you're looking for, because the length doesn't change on most of these. So for me, I'm a pretty tall guy, long arms, 32 inches seems to work quite well for me. And you can imagine what that looks like when I'm hanging onto it, you know, somewhere in here. Arm is still kinked, easy to control. It's not way out here. It's not way in here where I'm trying to control it against my body. So for me, this is a nice size, I would say. For most people, somewhere between 26 and 32 inches is a nice way to figure that out. If you want to play with it, you can just grab yourself, you know, a piece of line, kind of imagine where that might hang and where it's at, do a little measuring, and get yourself an idea of what size you might like best. Connecting them to the bar is fairly straightforward. Some bars are more challenging than others. This Ozone bar is one of the more challenging ones, I would say, and it still only took me about 10 minutes to get it done. What it is, this pigtail goes into this here. It's a real narrow hole there, and then connects on the other side here with a loop, and that terminates in there. So you got to pull that out with some pliers, disconnect it, pull it back through. All right, back on. So then we're going to slide the loops here over the end of the bar, pull them tight, secure the Velcro, and then that's what that looks like there. What gets a little bit hard with this one is because there's a little tiny hole here that you have to pull that pigtail through. So you got to put a little piece of flying line or some fishing line or whatever through there so you can pull it back through. So that can be a little bit challenging. Want some special tools to do that with the needle nose pliers and some fishing line or some flying line to do that. But as I said, still quite easy, even though it took me a little longer than the others to install. And once it's installed, I would suggest just leaving it on. That's going to be the easiest thing for you. So pretty much plan on buying a harness line for each of your bars or each of your wings that you're flying. So that one works really well. It's going to be probably the most popular because it is easy to put on. It's easy to hook in, unhook, and there's not a lot of items that can get snagged on your bridles here. So really that's the biggest thing for me, is when you fall or if your wing collapses on the water, you know, the bridles end up all over. It doesn't get snagged on here, which is really nice. And then hooking in, unhooking one-handed, you don't need to stretch it out and hook it in with two hands, is quite easy. One modification I did make on this one is to put a leash attachment ball here. So if you want to ride with a leash connected to your wing, you can hook it on the front line, or you can do the same thing on the back line here. However, I would say anytime you're riding with a leash and a parawing, you want to have a quick release on that, just in case the worst happens. You never know. These things do get stuck in the waves. You kind of powered into the waves with the current or something else in the water that gets snagged on. You want to be able to quickly release yourself from that parawing. So if you are going to leash to your parawing, make sure you got a quick release. All right, moving on to kind of our next style here. That would be our rope style harness line, and you can do this a couple different ways. The first time I did it, I connected it like a loop like this, where you can hook in and unhook with a pigtail right here, another one of these fastening straps. So it was kind of like that. The downside of that is a lot of times you're flying one-handed. If you're really powered up, it's kind of hard to do that. So you're two-handed doing it, and then you're trying to find that hook, and it's kind of flopping around. It's not as easy as it is on a wing, where you have just this stiff inflated structure and you can depower it pretty good. It's more difficult with the Parawing, I would say. So I kind of changed it to this single line off the front, and then I just fly it with one hand, take the other hand and hook in with this single line. And that does give you a really nice pivot point right off the front. So if you want your wing to be kind of depowered as you do that and not get fully committed into a more powered style of rodding, doing this single line off the front with a small loop can work. And then adjusting that power, you're just changing where it's positioned on the bar to hook in like that. And again, you need to do it two hands. You can't do it here. You got to do one of these. You can't do it one-handed and swing it in with the setup like this. You got to pretty much put it on the hook. But one benefit of this is it does give you kind of that automatic depower. So when you're flying out and you let go of your backhand, it automatically depowers rather than staying in that flying position. So then adjusting power is as simple as pulling in on it. So that doesn't lock you in to that kind of automatic flying like these do when you really hone them in, but it does give you that kind of pull and sheet kiteboarding type effect on that front. And then that way, if you fall when you're hooked in, it just kind of automatically depowers like that. So that is one style that some people might like as well. And then obviously with the rope style, that works too. I've done it for quite a few sessions, but I do find it's easier to hook in with a hard loop or with a single line rather than trying to, you know, get this in there and find that softer line that doesn't hold its shape quite as well. This one here, you'll see it's connected differently. This loop here is actually connected to the end of the bar, so we need to undo this loop over itself, unthread it, put it through the lines, hold on to these lines, put the loop over it, put the line back on like that, pull it tight. So this one is a little easier, but you want to make sure you don't drop those bridles and make a mess of it, because then it's going to be a bit more labor intensive to put together. But again, it's still not something that you're going to want to do every single session, switching between, you know, a couple of wings. I would definitely still suggest one harness line for each setup. That way you can leave it and be happy about it and be all set up there. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section below. If you want a suggestion on what harness line might work for your wing and for your body, we'd be happy to chat with you here at the shop or send us an email. Talk to you soon.